House, and they will hear him. And then a determination will be made. Now, if they made that determination as of that time, that the honorable member for Fomena was no longer to be recognized as a member of parliament, that decision will be served on parliament, in which case Professor Michael Quay will now be clothed with authority to announce, inform, in line with the standing.
But what role does the party play? Because remember, with that of the Fomena MP, the party wrote to the speaker that this person is no longer with us, and automatically.
And that is why I'm saying that in that case, a reference ought to have been made to the court for that matter to be determined.
So it still had to go to court.
Not with the greatest respect, within the authority of the speaker to make that decision, in my view. Of course, the courts are there to determine this matter properly. But in my educated view, and I hold a very, very humble view, that the Speaker of Parliament, I've read the provisions to you, nowhere in this constitution is the Speaker of Parliament close to with the authority to determine whether or not a member qualifies to sit in the House.
Right.
No.
Isn't this also a game of numbers, where because this sees a shift in the majority thing, that is why we have all of us, not to say that as, you know,
exactly
part of this.
Okay,
this
so you see, previously it was not an issue. Yeah. Of course, one of the minds I respect too much, the Honorable Mahama Yariga, when the Honorable Professor Okwe made that decision, he was one of the leading voices we heard on the matter, going through the records. I wasn't here at the time, but recently I've been researching on the matter. He was one of the people who spoke against it and said that the Speaker didn't have the authority. Now, I am surprised that a few years down the line, all of a sudden, the Honorable Mahama Yariga holds the view that, oh, now the Speaker has the authority. With the greatest respect, I believe that the Speaker doesn't have the authority. And I have told you, read to you the provisions of the Constitution. Nowhere in this Constitution is the Speaker clothed without authority. The only provision of our laws, and the standing orders are part of our laws, that makes reference to what the Speaker should do is informing the House. Inform. And under Article 99 of the Constitution, the High Court is given the authority to debate, to determine an issue whether there is vacancy in Parliament. Information is different from declaration. Declaration would have certain consequences. Information, I'm just telling you. So, for instance, when the president is leaving the country, he writes to the Speaker. The Speaker informs the House of the president's absence from the room. It doesn't mean the Speaker can determine that the president should not be in the country at this point. No. Okay. So let's separate the roles. The only officer in Parliament who is given express constitutional provision or fortitude to be able to do something about vacancies is the Clerk of Parliament. And his job is to communicate to the Electoral Commission as to the vacancy of Parliament. However, now there is this whole matter about the Supreme Court, blah, 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 blah. The Supreme Court is the highest court of the land. Their jurisdiction deals with enforcement of the Constitution and/or interpretation of the Constitution. Enforcement, the Constitution says there shall be ABCD. If that thing is not being done, you can go to court and say that, look, this provision has been suppressed by ABCD, let's enforce it. Right. Or that the Constitution says, like Article 97, people have disagreed as to what the meaning of Article 97, the relevant provision, is. So in that case, you call on the Supreme Court that, oh, rival meanings are being put onto this particular provision. And we invite you to actually look at it and determine whether, Kofi is right or Amma is right. And then we will move on accordingly. The majority leader, to the best of my understanding, invoked that particular jurisdiction, and the matter is before the Supreme Court. They can get up and say that, oh, we disagree with the majority, that there's no issue. So go and continue what you're doing. Or they can say that, oh yes, there's an issue. So we will hear it and determine. In this case, they said that there's an issue. They want to consider it and render a decision. Okay. So that ideally should end the matter. So all of us will hold our horses and wait for the outcome of the court. But what we are seeing, the Speaker, the Chief Justice to come to Parliament and enforce her order. I mean, really, this is a constitutional democracy. No single individual or group of people, they are not above the law. The law has made a pronouncement. You obey it for the time being. If you disagree with it, go back to the court with the appropriate, processes and seek to set it aside. And here the Speaker is back, has instructed his lawyers to that effect. That is what you do.
Okay.
But to marshal people to Parliament, to go and seek to, do your own thing, with the greatest respect, that is not in keeping with the oath of office of a member of Parliament.
So let me quickly take, the majority leader, the Honourable Fenyo Markin, organized a press conference a few minutes back. We'll pick that. But I want you to address the issue of Professor Wayuseni, who was also removed in Parliament by the Speaker at the time. But I'll come to that, because when it suits, it appears when it suits, it suits. So,
let me make a quick comment. Let me make a quick comment.
Okay.
You see, that was by the operation of law. The member, so it's sui generis. The lawyers say that it is in a category of its own. The member, or member in question, respected professor, rose on the floor of Parliament and told the Speaker that, look, Mr. Speaker, I am tired of the NPP side because what they are doing in Yendi, me, I don't like it. So I have decided to now join the minority.
The other side,
I'm joining the minority. So in effect, he is crossing cabinet. He said he had resigned. He said that if you go to the...
But the others have declared that they are not with their parties too.
You see, so hold on, here's the difference.
Yeah.
You cannot walk from across the aisle and say that you are no longer a member of the MPP. You are now joining. No, when you do that, it is the operation. So there's something, the principle of automaticity. It takes automatic effect. Just like a member of Parliament dies, you have become aware that the member of Parliament in question has died. It is a matter of fact whether he has died or not. It is a matter of fact whether the person has resigned or not.
It's a matter of fact if the person wants to go independent or not.
It is, but it is a question of law to be determined. If the person is dead, what would the court go and determine? The person is dead, he's dead, he's dead. They've shown you, unless there is an issue. So, for instance, the member of Parliament travels, and then maybe we hear that a plane has fallen from the sky, and there's some issue that, maybe the member of Parliament was on that plane. Then somebody says, okay, well, the member of Parliament was on the plane and the person has died, so blah, blah, blah. So then the person says that, okay, well, if the member of Parliament has died, what's the evidence? There's no evidence. Yes, somebody says that the member of Parliament has died, so there should be vacancy. In that case, an issue would arise. Can we prove that indeed a member of Parliament in question has died? It is for the court to determine. There is a reason for that. If you leave it to political determination, there'll be problems. The Speaker of Parliament can come to Parliament tomorrow, depending on how he feels. And, maybe somebody makes an implication on the floor that, yesterday I went to a particular meeting and I have this letter signed by all of these majority members of Parliament. And they have signed that they have now joined a different political party. So, Mr. Speaker, make a pronouncement. Without even hearing, or even after hearing the people affected, the Speaker makes a decision that all the members of the majority side of Parliament, wait, you have vacated your seats. Now that will be recipe for chaos. If we continue with this particular interpretation, that is where it will lead us.
But Richard,
the reason is that the people have got to be heard.
But these people have declared publicly what they want to do.
You see, you don't get it.
I'm trying to get it.
They have filed to contest.
Yes.
It's a matter of fact. You can go and verify.
Yes.
But the question of the implications of that is a question for judicial determination.
Not the Speaker.
Not for the to preside and determine that.
Okay, let me quickly, I'll let you cool down small and take the majority leader's video, the Honourable Fenyo Markin.
There was a decision by Mr. Speaker expressing his opinion on Article 97 of the 1992 Constitution. That opinion led to a declaration by him that those members have vacated their seats. Prior to his decision, I had brought to his attention that there was a pending suit at the Supreme Court, which pending suit was to seek certain interpretation of Article 97. In fact, Mr. Speaker himself acknowledged that on the floor of the House. As a result of his decision, the majority caucus expressed its disagreement with his decision and gave a clear indication that the matter will be pursued further at the Supreme Court. So on Friday, another process was filed by me, and the Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, determined the matter and ruled, among others, that one, Speaker's interpretation of the law was wrongful, and that the Supreme Court was staying his decision pending the final determination of the case. In other words, his earlier decision to the effect that those 4 MPs, that is MP for Fomina, MP for Aguna West, MP for Suhum, and Amenfi Central, had vacated their seats, was nullified. In essence, we are law-abiding. We have heard that our colleagues say they disagree with the Supreme Court. They've been using unprintable words on the Supreme Court. On Sunday, the minority leader, my respected colleague, Dr. Forson, led the minority caucus in a press conference whereupon they told Ghanaians that today they will come and occupy our seats by their own proclamation. MPP, our tradition is a law-abiding tradition. Our forebears always use the courts to correct the wrong. Since 1992, our leaders have always used civil advocacy and the courts to ensure that we get the peace that we have today. On top of my head, I can recall the era where we used thumbprint ID cards and we used opaque ballot boxes. All these are things of the past today because of MPP. Today we have a very transparent electoral system because of the advocacy of our forebears. It's our turn in leadership. The country is hereby informed that we will not give that lawless platform that NDC is seeking. We will not give them that platform. We will not give them that theater they so aggressively seek. This will disrupt democracy and to destroy our nation. We know there are innocent people out there, innocent Ghanaians going about their business, innocent Ghanaians in the academia, innocent Ghanaians who are struggling to get 3 square meals on the table for their families. We care about them. We understand that there is politics, but we must do it in a civil manner. We believe that the appropriate thing is to quietly yield to them and wait upon Mr. Speaker. After all, the ruling was directed at Parliament and the Speaker, not an individual MP. Yesterday, the bailiff of the Supreme Court served Parliament of Ghana through the legal directorate. The director of the legal department received the ruling of the court. So, in other words, Mr. Speaker is on constructive notice, or maybe I should say actual notice of the ruling of the court. We have to leave it there and respect Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker has been part of our democracy since 1992. He's a senior lawyer. He's practiced in our court. And I believe that even if Mr. Speaker disagrees with the Supreme Court, he knows what to do. Suffice to state, at the risk of being repetitive, that we were not disrespectful of the chair. When the Speaker made this pronouncement and the majority caucus disagreed with Mr. Speaker, we didn't cause commotion here. We left quietly and told Mr. Speaker that the right place to express those grievances will be at the court. So we expect our brothers and our sisters on the NDC minority side to do the need. But all would be for Mr. Speaker to make a final determination. The nation is looking up to Mr. Speaker. All his years in politics, this is a crucial moment for him to add weight to what we have done to preserve the peace. MPP is for peace. MPP is for peace. MPP is for peace of Ghana. We will not allow anybody to disturb the peace of the country. It is a notorious fact that we remain the majority caucus of this parliament. You, the media, must add your voice to the advocacy to compel our colleagues to respect the fidelity of the law. I have heard a respected colleague on their side, Honorable Dr. Ayini, calling on Mr. Speaker to respect the Supreme Court decision. If it is true, then that's a noble call from him. Dr. Ayini is somebody I respect because of his respect for the law. I believe that moderates on the side of NDC will prevail on the hawks in their party to call them to order. I would want to thank you for being with us. We are leaving this chamber peacefully into our offices. I wait Mr. Speaker's arrival, and if he calls leadership and we do pre-sitting discussion, we'll take it up from there. But for now, that lawless theater will not share with them, because Ghana, our country Ghana, is bigger than any one individual. So we would want to, at this point, sing our party's anthem to let you know who we are. Colleagues, we are the new Patriotic Party. We are the new Patriotic Party. The elephant is a winning symbol. We have won to save Ghana. The elephant is a winning symbol. We have won to save Ghana.
So that's the majority leader, the Honorable Fenyu Makin, speaking to press men and women a few minutes ago on happenings this morning and matters arising prior and after the Speaker's ruling on the matter. I'm here in the studio with Richard de la Sky. Some years ago, you'll be, in Parliament covering this for us.
Yes.
I'm wondering how you're feeling, based on. It's always exciting to be on the field as a journalist.
I know, right? I'm almost always in Parliament. Anyway.
Yeah.
I go there every now and then to, to speak to friends I know, and then also to, in appropriate cases, advise members on both sides of the House if they seek my opinion on a particular thing. There are people who want to know better about a certain procedure. Having served in that House as a parliamentary correspondent for so many years, some people lean on me every now and then to tell them my opinion. So, and also there are times I just go there just to observe what's happening, and I get excited. So yes, I go there I'm a true follower of our parliament, and that is why I have a penny or two to share on the subject.
And that's
matter.
why you're here today, taking
yes.
us through, parliamentary procedure. And I like the way you're bringing in the law and the constitution to support your statements on that. But there's also the question. So you've taken us through what is expected of the speaker, what the law says, when to trigger, if it's vacant and all that. But some say that what we've seen, Parliament has gone ahead to do what it deems fit, and yet the judiciary is interfering. Where do you draw the line?
Okay, so you notice that when I first read the provision, I went to Article 2 of the Constitution, and I read for you Article 1. It's what people are talking about. When they mention that, they are talking about the principle of separation of powers. In other words, the power of governance should not reside in one man.
That's right.
If we go back to the UK, that authority was previously held by the king, the queen, as the case may be. So the queen makes the laws, the queen enforces the laws, and the queen is actually the head of state. So what the three branches of government are what? The executive, the parliament and the judiciary. The executive is for the day-to-day administration of the state. The parliament, they make the laws. And the judiciary enforces it. So previously, the king or the queen was occupying all of that position. The likes of A.V. Dicey, respected English philosopher and legal mind, when he propounded this whole theory based on some other earlier writings, he said that it was wrong to consolidate the authority of state in one man. Because that person, if the person passes, is the person who is the head of state, is the person who writes the law, and the person who enforces it. He would enforce his will throughout the chain. So the proper thing to do is to introduce what became known as, or has become known as, the concept of separation of powers. So that divinity, let's divide, Trinity, let's divide that into three parts, the person into three parts. One of his powers we should leave for him. The other two we take to the judiciary and the legislature. So the judiciary will be the people who would interpret the law, and parliament will be the institution that would write the law. So when parliament writes the law, it goes to the executive, the head of state, to sign it. And when there is an issue for the matter or the law to be enforced, it goes to the judiciary. So that's how we have done it. This concept flowed from the UK, right? And it was only recently that even they themselves took their judiciary, the House of Lords, out of, that's why it's the House of Lords. That's the second chamber of the UK Parliament. And the people who were members of the House of Lords were the same people, to a large extent in appropriate cases, who were ruling on matters that are judicial in nature. Now they have fully separated, created the judicial branch, fully separate. Parliament is still fully separate. And then you already have the king or the queen, as the case may be, who is the head of state. But they have an administrator of the state, who is a prime minister. But he is still in parliament. So theirs is not full separation of powers, because under their law, strictly speaking, the king is also still said to be a member of parliament to a large extent. But there's a long process. I don't want to go into that. So in Ghana, we have imported that, but with the necessary modifications. What are the modifications? We have a head of state, and we have given the head of state the authority to execute legislation passed by parliament. We have parliament given the authority to pass certain types of legislations. And then we have the judiciary given the authority by the Constitution to interpret and also to enforce the laws as passed by parliament. So all of these institutions are to work together for the proper administration of the state of Ghana. Now, if you look closely at the provisions of the Constitution, the judiciary, under the separation of powers, cannot tell the speaker that tomorrow when you're coming to parliament, dress like this. Because they do not have that authority. They cannot sit and say, members of parliament, when you are coming to parliament, this is how you dress. Or members of parliament, when you come to the house, this is where you should sit. They don't have that authority. But the Constitution empowers them that where a person says that he's drawing authority from the Constitution, or I am acting on the basis of a constitutional authority granted to me, and the person does anything that a citizen of the land considers inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution, that person shall seek audience before the court, the Supreme Court as the case may be, or the High Court as the case may be, and then seek the intervention of the judges sitting on it for the right thing, in their view, to be done. So if you look at this, strictly speaking, there is nothing like parliamentary sovereignty in Ghana. That concept is valid in the UK because their parliament, the only thing that it cannot do is to change Vivian to Kweku and Kweku to Vivian, because biologically, strictly speaking, that's not possible. Of course, there are recent concepts like that creates all kinds of things. But the UK Parliament can do anything it wants to do except to change a man into a woman. However, even in their country, and this is where the nuances come in, the court, on the basis of European law, can make a declaration of incompatibility. In other words, when Parliament passes a law, and that law is seen to be incompatible with community legislation, which is the European Union, the court can say that. But it cannot tell Parliament to go back and redo the law. The Parliament will take notice of what the courts have said and will act upon it. You understand?
Yeah.
But we don't have that in our country. What we have is a judiciary that is clothed with absolute authority to determine what is the law and interpret it.
Okay.
You understand? So, determine, I'm using determine in the sense of interpret the law and to enforce it. It is Parliament's job to pass the law. It is the executive's job to execute it. So when there is an issue as to what the law means, it is not the views of the president that matters. It is not the views of parliamentarians that matters. It is the views of the judiciary as properly constituted to determine this is the law and this is how it should be applied. Of course, in the ordinary course of things, the Speaker is entitled to look at the provision of the Constitution and then apply it as he understands it. But you see, once there are consequences for that decision, and once a member of this Ghanaian society with citizenship goes before the court to say that, oh, the Speaker acted wrongly, then the authority of the Supreme Court is properly invoked to run a test, a legal test, as to determine whether the authority so exercised is consistent with the letter and spirit of the Constitution. And once they make a pronouncement, that becomes binding. So let nobody mislead you that Parliament is a master of its own rules. That concept is valid in the UK, and here is only applicable to a limited extent. Because if the Constitution says that Mr. Speaker shall be elected by so and so number of people, and he shall take office on the so and so basis, Parliament cannot go and sit there and then take a vote. Two people take a vote, and then you say that we are the masters of our own rules, so we have elected a speaker. No. The courts will come in and say what you have done is wrong. The Justice Abdullahi case, that case, I originally took it to the Supreme Court. And I argued that it was wrong for, what do you call it, the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, what's his name? Bekwa MP. Joseph. To take part in the vote that decided the budget should be rejected. Much earlier, I had filed an application to the Supreme Court, and I argued that it was wrong for Parliament, with the numbers that they had, to have voted saying that they had rejected the budget. Those matters were pending before the courts. And then later on, Justice Abdullahi also filed his processes. But somehow, the Attorney General failed to respond to my suit. So eventually Justice Abdullah's case was decided. And that is now the leading authority on how the courts can get into Parliament. And in that judgment, Justice Yoni Kulendi, His Lordship Justice Yoni Kulendi, made it clear that the Constitution sets tests that all of us under it must meet in the performance of our rules. And where there is a deviation from what the test is, the courts are clothed with authority under Article 130 and 2 to intervene. So when you hear people sitting on radio and misinforming everybody that the courts cannot determine what is happening in Parliament, no, that is not, with the greatest respect, the law of the Republic of Ghana.
Okay.
If you claim to exercise constitutional authority and you are deemed to have acted in excess of that authority, and the citizen goes before the courts have every right under our Constitution to intervene and say you have acted wrongly. Another example. Previously, the Rawlings administration was using, the late J.J. Rawlings, you know, the man who gave us this Constitution. He was using our money to celebrate coup d'etats. The PNDC AFRC thing. A citizen of Ghana said that no, this sins against the spirit and the letter of the Constitution. So let the Supreme Court make a declaration to that effect. When that declaration was made, we were no longer using state money to celebrate these events because the Supreme Court had given an order. J.J. Rawlings was the man who signed the Constitution into law, but he obeyed. I mean, some people claim that, oh, you see state vehicles there, so maybe you are still breaching. But to a large extent, they observed that. They scrapped that whole thing of the public, what do you call it, a holiday, or is it a public holiday or whatever? Yeah, the events, they scrapped it. Now look, you can't use our money for the purpose. When the issue arose as to whether hold over ministers who were in the previous administration can just walk into their offices again and still continue to be ministers because, you know, their party has won power. When J.H. Mensah went to the Supreme Court and the decision was made, J.J. Rawlings' administration obeyed that.
Okay.
And the ministers were approved again by Parliament. Now that is to tell you that all of these branches, they have their own roles to play. But those roles are confined by the express words and the spirit of the Constitution. Okay. And where they go beyond the exercise of their authority, the Supreme Court is there, or some other court is there to intervene and say, no, this one you have acted wrongly.
You can't do that.
In the case of Justice Abdullahi, one of the issues that went before the court was whether a certain provision of the Supreme, the standing orders, having to do with, the Deputy Speaker voting and presiding and voting, came up. The Supreme Court struck down that particular provision in the standing orders that, hey, a person who is presiding, although he's the Deputy Speaker, although he's a member of Parliament, has the right, yes, to vote. Parliament hasn't said, I will not implement that. They told them that it is incompatible with the provisions of the law, which they are entitled to so do. So with great respect to all the people who advance opinions to the contrary, that is not the law of Ghana. The law of Ghana is you have certain rules to play as Parliament, as the President. Where you overstep your boundary, the Supreme Court is there to whip you back into line. Okay. Similarly, if the Chief Justice takes a decision and that decision is deemed unconstitutional, a citizen of Ghana can take that matter to the Supreme Court and say, oh, in my respectful view, the Chief Justice acted in excess of constitutional authority. When a determination is made by the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, as the administrative head of the judiciary, is bound by that decision. And where she does anything to the contrary, the full consequences of Article 2 will be brought to bear on her.
Okay. Where this whole thing, where does it leave the rules of the political parties involved? Because it's clear that if you say you're not running on my ticket and you're going independent, automatically you cease to be a member of the political party.
Yeah, so you see, It did not happen previously. Now is the time for the courts to lay the matter down clearly that going forward, this is what the provision means. Going forward, if this happens, this is how it should be determined. Previously, it was not an issue, but now it is an issue. So the courts have been properly called upon to determine it. Whatever may have happened previously, no matter how many times it would have happened, if there is a pronouncement today that the law of Ghana is that merely filing to contest the next election on the ticket of a party other than the vehicle that brought you to parliament constitutes a vacation of your seat, and that this is the process to use in order to give effect to the wording of the Constitution, that will be it. You understand? Yeah. And we hope that the parties involved in this matter will play the roles that they have to play. We hear the Speaker has filed an application, or his lawyers have filed an application. That is the proper way of doing it. For the time being, you obey the law as pronounced upon by the Supreme Court until a contrary decision is made by the Supreme Court. It is not a matter left for the determination of the majority leader or the minority leader or the Speaker of Parliament. The Speaker can make pronouncements that are within his authority in relation to what happens in that. The Speaker cannot sit in the Chamber of Parliament and say that tomorrow you, Vivian, you cannot come to work. It is a political declaration which he doesn't even have the authority to make. You understand?
Yeah.
And if he makes that determination, it will not be binding on you. But if I have a problem with you, Vivian, you are the editor, and I go to the court saying that, oh, maybe you did something so and so, they have the jurisdiction to deal with it, and they say that going forward tomorrow, don't come to work. You cannot disobey that, because that is a judicial determination made, which is binding upon you. And even if you live in Wuruyanga, it is binding upon you. You understand? That is how vast the authority of the court is. When they make an order, you can't disobey it. But we are in Parliament and people are shouting, the Chief Justice will come and enforce their own order. That is complete utter disrespect to the institution of the judiciary. And we should not be seen as leaders in this country doing that kind of thing. It is unfortunate. Respect it for the time being. Criticize this robustly if you may. But what you do not do is to disrespect. And if you are minded, as the Speaker has done, go to court, hear your case, and the courts change their mind sometimes. Okay. And they will change their mind.
Okay. We'll take a quick break. While we come, we'll look at, based on what we're hearing with the Parliament, with the Speaker going ahead with that application, what it means later in the day in terms of the earlier ruling, and then some of the assertions made by the minority on guarding their new position, quote unquote, jealously, among others. This is our special coverage of parliamentary proceedings. We're live on Channel 1 TV as well as City 97.3 FM. My name is Vivian, and this is Vivian Kai Lokko in the studio. I have Richard Sky. When we come back, we'll take you to Parliament and then continue with our discussion. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
And all.
Just go through. What it is to expect. Just go through. What it is to expect. Just go through. What it is to expect.
like I indicated earlier, we still have members of parliament coming in the chamber for proceedings to commence at 10 a.m. as officially required. But the issue is that we still have members of parliament sitting at the majority side of the house. None of them is at the minority side, having hearty discussions among themselves, irrespective of their differences and their political affiliations. So it's still pleasantries ongoing, and so we have the arrival of the speaker for proceedings to officially begin.
Okay.
So far.
We know that they have to know that we need to respect the rules of Parliament. Parliament ruled that 4 members of Parliament are no longer members of Parliament. And we assume that in doing so, we are now members of the majority. If we come here, we are going to behave like that. Now, if they come, they should also behave like the minority. Until the Speaker comes and says, I have received ruling from the Apex Court. The Apex Court has said A, B, C, D. If the Apex Court has not communicated anything to the Speaker will keep quiet about it. If they have formally communicated to the Speaker will now come here and tell us that my earlier ruling is no longer there. Let us now do A, B, C, D. So it is illegal for them.
The Speaker did not seek to interpret the Constitution, only abide by the Constitution. The Constitution enjoins the Speaker to announce the vacancy of a seat when same is occasion. And Article 97 gives you the basis on which that vacancy can occasion, the death of a member of Parliament, cross-carpeting. So if that has been occasioned, and there's evidence of same from the Electoral Commission, and the Speaker communicates him, what is the Supreme Court interpreting? In fact, the Supreme Court has set its own questions and answers, because the ruling the Supreme Court gave is completely different from the case Afenyo took. Afenyo took a case on Monday, last week Monday, to the court to place an injunction on the Speaker from passing a determination on the status of the form. The Supreme Court only sat on Friday. Meanwhile, the Speaker had made the determination on Thursday. So if the Speaker had determined on Thursday already the matter before the Supreme Court, what was the Supreme Court ruling on? What have they ruled on? Except they chose to set their own questions and answer their own questions. So now the Supreme Court is the applicant in the case, has been the judge in the case and also executed. No, they can't be judge, jury, and everything in their own case. Absolute House is not under the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Have you seen the Supreme Court issue any such directive to the executive, to a Minister of State or the President? Have you seen the Chief Justice sit and panel, but even when President Akufo-Addo was abusing the executive instruments during COVID, did you see the Supreme Court issue a directive to him? That's Sebi, as they say in P, back when an enemy Harry. So he's the one they would disrespect. And I think Parliament itself has contributed to this. Because Parliament has sat aloof and allowed the judiciary and the executive to lord over it for too long. In the case of the LGBTQ bill, Parliament is enjoined by the Constitution, Article 106(7), to transmit a bill that is passed by this House straight to Parliament. There is no injunction, so why is Parliament not transmitting the bill? Why has the Speaker not insisted on transmitting the bill? And I stood on the floor of the House and told Mr. Speaker, I said, Mr. Speaker, if the President has asked the Secretary to write a cease and desist warning to you, cause the clerk to also write a cease and desist to the President, that we will not entertain any business from government until the government accepts ours. It's quid pro quo. But because we bent over backwards for them. When you give people an inch, they will take a mile. And that's why today, because we have allowed them to do the things they've done, they've become so emboldened that they think it is within their rights to be able to determine to Parliament what we should do. But
struggling to get 3 square meals on the table for their families. We care about it. We understand that there is politics, but we must do it in a civil manner. We believe that the appropriate thing is to quietly yield to them and wait upon Mrs. Speaker. After all, the ruling was directed at Parliament and the Speaker, not an individual MP. Yesterday, the bailiff of the Supreme Court served Parliament of Ghana through the legal director. The director of the legal department received the ruling of the court. So, in other words, Mr. Speaker is on constructive notice, or maybe I should say actual notice of the ruling of the court. We have to leave it there and respect Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker has been part of our democracy since 1992. He's a senior lawyer. He's practiced in our courts. And I believe that even if Mr. Speaker disagrees with the Supreme Court, he knows what to do. Suffice to state, at the risk of being repetitive, that we were not disrespectful of the church. When the Speaker made his pronouncement and the majority caucus disagreed with Mr. Speaker, we didn't cause commotion here. We left quietly and told Mr. Speaker that the right place to express those grievances will be at the court. So we expect our brothers and our sisters on the NDC minority side to do the needful. But all would be for Mr. Speaker to make a final determination. The nation is looking up to Mr. Speaker. All his years in politics, this is a crucial moment for him to add weight to what we have done to preserve the peace. MPP is for peace. MPP is for peace. MPP is for peace of Ghana. We will not allow anybody to disturb the peace of the country. It is a notorious fact that we remain the majority caucus of this parliament. You, the media, must add your voice to the advocacy to compel our colleagues to respect the fidelity of the law. I have heard a respected colleague on the other side, Honorable Dr. Ayini, calling on Mr. Speaker to respect the Supreme Court decision. If that is true, then that's a noble call from him. Dr. Ayini is somebody I respect because of his respect for the law. I believe that moderates on the side of NDC will prevail on the horse in their party to call them to order. So I would want to thank you for being with us. We are leaving this chamber.
My former boss is here. My boss is here. The proverb, East African proverb I will end here is when an armed robber, when a thief tells you to go to court, it's because his brother is the judge. That's right.
And then maybe to ask him, when the thief sees
my former boss.
We know that they have to know that we need to respect the rules of Parliament. Parliament ruled that 4 members of Parliament are no longer members of Parliament. And we assure that in doing so, we are now members of the majority. If we come here, we are going to behave like that. Now, if they come, they should also behave like the minority. Until the Speaker comes and says, I have received ruling from the Apex Court. The Apex Court has said A, B, C, D. If the Apex Court has not communicated anything to the
that.
Yep.
Of course, we still have just the minority from our pictures there in the chamber. We are hoping we'll see the majority side come in. They say they were waiting for the speaker to come in and then they will come back to the chamber. So we are hoping they come in and then we'll see how things will pan out now following the arrival of the speaker.
So the first thing he will do is to say honorable members' prayers.
Okay.
So they will have their prayer and all matters will follow therefrom.
Okay.
So let's expect to hear him say honorable members' prayers. He will read the prayer together with members. And because this is a fresh week, they'll most likely say the pledge.
Okay. Okay, so they'll do that after.
They'll do that, after which, if there's some communication he wants to bring to the attention of the House, he will do that. So let's wait and see and hear what he will say.
Okay.
For now, he's sorting out his things. Yes.
Okay, so we're trying to get the sound a bit of, So what this is for the pledge, right?
Yeah, that's right. So this is the prayer session. They are going to say their prayers now.
Okay.
You hear, Almighty God, we humbly beseech Thee, and go on and on and on, and then.
Okay, let's pick them.
It's her duty, as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic. Endow members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served, and our good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. O God, grant us a vision of our country, fair as it might be, a country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, a country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, a country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service, and honor shall be given to the deserving, a country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the efforts of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people, that they may give time, thought, and sacrifice to speed the day of the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen.
Communication he wants to read to the House, or they will go into correction of votes and proceedings. So the votes taken previously, they will correct those, and then if there are some reports to look at, they will deal with that too, and then the House will continue. But you will notice that the chamber is not full.
Yeah.
If the chamber is not full, and if they do not have the numbers necessary to take a decision, any decision that is taken.
Okay, let's hear him. He started speaking.
We'll take item 3 on the order paper. Honorable members, National Pledge. Pursuant to Order 69, we shall proceed to recite the National Pledge. I promise on my honor
to be faithful and not honor my motherland. I pledge myself to this with all my
Thank you so much. Please resume your seats. Honorable members, I want to vary the order of business, and we will take next item 6. Item 6 on the order paper, which is correction of votes and proceedings and official report. We shall commence with the correction of the votes and proceedings of the third sitting dated Thursday, 17th October 2024. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Yes, honorable member.
Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, item number 5 on page 9. Mr. Speaker, the statement made by the Honorable Minority, the Honorable Atufosi, Mr. Speaker, was in respect of the fact that 4 members of Parliament whose names have been listed have breached Article 97(1)(g) and (h). It was not a mere allegation, Mr. Speaker. So the appearance of who were alleged to have been in breach, I believe that it does not reflect the true statement made by the member, because it was based on the statement that the Speaker proceeded to make to give information that you gave to the House. The Speaker further, in indicating the names of the honorable members so named, their current situations and circumstances were clearly stated in the motion paper, so that, for instance, the first name, Peter Yaokwachi Aka, the NDC member for Amenfi Central, and now an independent candidate. Mr. Speaker, so the statement contained these clear facts, and therefore it's important that they reflect in the proceedings as captured for purposes of correction. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, honorable member for Medina.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I also want to draw your attention to the same item, the paragraph 5, the ending statement, which is majority caucus in in inverted commas. Mr. Speaker, I think the true intention will be reflected there when we say that the minority caucus staged a walkout instead of a majority caucus in inverted commas. So if the correction can be made to reflect what was there. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Member Bolsa Saf. Is that okay? Yes, from the distance, I can't see. Honorable Member you are all right? Thank you, thank you. Table office, kindly take note of the comments made by the members. Please cross-check from the records and capture what is on the record of the House. Please, page 10. Page 11. Honorable members, in the absence of any further corrections, the votes and proceedings of the third sitting, dated Thursday, 17th October 2024, are adopted as the true record of proceedings. Honorable members, I don't have a copy of any of the official reports. So we'll proceed now to item 5, formal communication by the Speaker. Honorable members, as you may recall, on Thursday, I informed the House, pursuant to Standing Order 18 of the Standing Orders of Parliament, on the occurrence of vacancies in the House in relation to 4 honorable members. Yesterday, I received a process from the Supreme Court, which is a ruling from the Supreme Court pursuant to an ex parte application directing Parliament to recognize and allow the 4 affected members of Parliament to duly represent their constituents and conduct full scope of duties of their offices as members of Parliament, pending the final determination of a suit filed by Honorable Alexander Afenyo-Markin. By Article 102 of the Constitution, 1992, and Order 64(1) of the Standing Orders of Parliament, I note that we currently have a quorum to transact business, but not to take decisions. I want to read the said Article 102 of the Constitution. It reads, a quorum of Parliament, apart from the person presiding, shall be 1/3 of all the members of Parliament. As presently constituted, the numbers definitely is far above 1/3, of the members of Parliament. But by Article 104, the numbers are not sufficient for us to take decisions. And I'll quote Article 104. Article 1041 says, except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by the votes of the majority of members present and voting, with at least half of all the members of Parliament present. Honorable members, we don't have at least half of all the members of Parliament present. Consequently, in view of the current circumstances, the fact that there is a question on the composition and constitution of Parliament, and having regard to the public interest and the exigencies of the state of affairs in Parliament, I will proceed to, in accordance with Standing Orders 59, adjourn the House indefinitely. That is sine die. I want to quote Standing Orders 59:1. It says, the Speaker may, in consultation with leadership, suspend a meeting of the House indefinitely or for a period determined by the Speaker, having regard to the public interest and the exigencies of the state of affairs in the country. Honorable members, I have consulted leadership, and I am exercising my discretion to decide to suspend the meeting of the House indefinitely. The House is accordingly adjourned sine die.
So, Richard Sky, the Speaker of Parliament, referencing Orders 59:1, has adjourned the House indefinitely, pending the issues that we know surrounding today's sitting. Way to go with all this best move.
Okay, so we can take the matters apart.
Yeah.
You realize earlier, I think on radio, and then also I think I was telling you that the composition of Parliament presently, even if we assume that the decision is made by the Speaker to have those MPs leave the House is valid without admitting the same.
Yeah.
And so purely on the numbers, you would have a slim NDC majority, which would be one, just like you have in the MPP case when the independent member of Parliament joined the MPP and it made the numbers 138 instead of the 137. So the composition of Parliament presently, barring if we were to remove all 4 seats, so take four seats out of 275, what would be left?
4 seats out of 275.
Yeah.
Or 271.
Yeah, 271. So for Parliament to be deemed to be taking a valid decision, you need at least half of 271 MPs present. Now let's do the math.
That comes up to 271 divided by 2.
271
Mental.
Divided by 2. I'm now seeing we get there. I'm punching the numbers. You get 135.5. Now, you don't have a 0.5 of a human being.
Yeah.
So you round up to the nearest whole number. So when you round up, and because it is 5, you have 136.
Yeah.
So for a decision to be made by Parliament, which decision will be deemed to be valid to the extent of having the force of law, except in clear areas of the Constitution where it says that you need 2/3 or 3/10 majority, you need 136 members of Parliament present. As I said on radio this morning, the NDC MPs presently, if we take that, we knock off 1 member of Parliament, they will come down to 136.
Yeah.
But I do know on authority that a number of them are either receiving, let me put it this way, a number of them are not available to take part in parliamentary proceedings.
So they don't have that 136.
Exactly. So you don't have the 136. So while in line with the Constitution, Article 104, and then Justice Abdullah's case, the court said expressly what the Speaker is putting in effect what the court said. Under Article 104, you can transact business, like, which is what? Communications from the Speaker, prayers, those things. You can do those things. But you cannot pass a law
with that number.
With that number. Because for you to pass a law which is not encumbered by any other constitutional provision, you need at least half of all members of Parliament. So it will not be 275. It will now be the House as presently constituted. Because the framers of the Constitution contemplated that there will come a time where vacancies will occur. And in the Constitution, they said expressly that despite those vacancies, once the House is properly constituted, it can take decisions. But for you to take a decision, you need at least half of all members of Parliament present. Which decisions will be valid in the eyes of the law, unless the Constitution itself says that as for this matter, so for instance, the removal of the Speaker, you need 3/3 majority of the people voting, and in some cases 2/3 majority to take part in some other decision. So while people can sit today and say, oh, we are the majority, the question is to what effect? So the Speaker says that, yes, I note what the Supreme Court has said, but in the chamber right now, looking at the state of the House, I see less than 100 and what number did I mention?
136.
Yes, I see less than 136. And therefore, properly speaking, we cannot take a decision. So if Parliament can't take a decision, then what's the point going to sit there? So the Speaker says that, okay, in the circumstances and considering the state of affairs, blah, 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 he was adjourning the House sine die. Now, truly, the Speaker is empowered by the standing orders and the Constitution to do that. If you, let me read.
So that won't have another time somebody going to say that the Speaker erred and has to
so the question, let me read the standing orders. We'll come to that. The standing order he quoted is suspension of meeting, 59. The Speaker may, one says, the Speaker may, in consultation with leadership. So, may, in consultation with leadership. May, in consultation with leadership. So, underline may and in consultation of leadership. Suspend a meeting of the House indefinitely, sine die, or for a period determined by the Speaker, having regard to public interest and the exigencies of the state of affairs in the country. So there are two things to consider. Exigencies, so the state of affairs, the fighting, people have marched to Parliament and they are not happy, they want to support the MPP. An irresponsible conduct, that could create problems. The Speaker must have taken notice of that. He says, having regard to the state of affairs, this big. So maybe he considered that. And then also having regard to the public interest. So two things are in play there. So is it in the public interest to continue sitting when you do know that even if you act, it will be declared nullified by the Supreme Court because you don't have the numbers to take that decision.
Yeah.
So the Speaker must have considered that. Now, the key then will be, yes, the Speaker has the authority to make that decision. But was there consultation? He tells us that there was consultation. So I assume, and you normally would assume that the official acts have been regularly performed unless there's evidence to the contrary. We want to assume for now, what the producer should be doing is to be calling the leadership of the two sides to find out whether indeed
that has happened.
There was a consultation between the Speaker and leadership, and whether indeed, a decision was made to that effect, that in the interest of the public, and then also having regard to the exigencies of affairs of state, Parliament should adjourn. So, strictly speaking, if you look at it, the Speaker has the authority, if you read the provisions of the Constitution, and Standing Order 59 has the authority to do that. But of course, as you said, as he said, he was exercising discretionary authority. Now, our Constitution makes provision for the questioning of the exercise of discretionary authority where it is deemed to have been exercised but exercised wrongly. In other words, when you are exercising that authority, you are to exercise it fairly. You understand? So, first of all, the first thing we should do is to call up the majority leader, call up the minority leader. Oh, Mr. Speaker said that you guys have had a consultation and you came to this decision. Is that the case? And let them tell us that, oh yes, that happened, or that did not happen. And then we'll proceed from there. And then also, we can then be guided as to whether the Speaker in the exercise of a discretionary authority acted properly. But we must all understand that this is a very, very clever way of getting around the matter.
Yeah.
Because the Speaker was right on point. You don't have the numbers. If the MPP side was there, right? If the MPP side was there in Parliament, with the honourable member for Fomena, with the honourable member for the what's the name of the other constituency?
Cynthia Morris's place, then
exactly.
The one from the Ashanti side.
Exactly. If the majority side had gone to Parliament and the marshals say that they are not going to allow them to enter Parliament, then that conduct then will be in defiance of the orders of the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Because the orders of the Supreme Court are clear that these members of Parliament, for the time being, has to be allowed to continue performing their roles as members of Parliament until determined otherwise by the Supreme Court. So, strictly speaking, when you look at it, Parliament or the Speaker hasn't violated the orders of the Supreme Court. The House sat, he read a communication to the House, says that he didn't have a quorum to carry out the mandate of Parliament, which is what, to pass the laws and do this and that and that. And therefore, he was adjourning the House. So let's look at it in that light. Similarly, if the honourable member for the NDC side, forgotten his name.
Castle.
No, the other one, the member who is also being expelled by the House. There are four of them. My memory is
among the four.
Yeah, that's right. There's one member of Parliament from the NDC side. If he had gone to the House wanting to take part in proceedings, and officers of Parliament or the Speaker says you can't take part in proceedings, in that case, again, the Speaker will be acting in excess of the orders or breaching the orders as issued by the Supreme Court, or the directive issued by the Supreme Court. So, for our own education and for the education of everybody, the Speaker says he notes what has been said by the Supreme Court. He takes the view that the House should be adjourned sine die because it is in the public interest and because of the exigencies or the matters, he can take
okay, so you are trying to say Peter Kwachi Aka.
Yeah, Peter Kwachi Aka. So, if those people, members of Parliament, write to Parliament and say that, look, they want to take advantage of ABCD as members of Parliament, and the Speaker says you cannot, then in that case too, there will be issues of whether or not he's violating the laws as laid down by the Supreme Court.
Okay.
So let us be clear. What we need to find out is, first of all, in line with Standing Order 59, whether the Speaker had that meeting with the majority and the minority leadership, and whether indeed there was a decision that...
Okay. All right, Sky, hold on with your thoughts. There's a lot to, glean from this on what it means, the implications and all that for the House, especially having just 3 weeks to wrap up for the year, and then government business and all that. But let's go back to Parliament. Our correspondent Ayikwe Okine is ready, picking some reactions and telling us the latest there. Ayikwe, welcome back. What is happening? Are the leaders speaking, confirming what the Speaker said, or what's new with the ruling, Indefinite?
Thanks for having me, Vivian. So as it stands now, Speaker Alban Bagbin has adjourned the House indefinitely. However, none of the leaders is available at the moment to grant any interview. But then members of Parliament from the NDC side are granting interviews expressing their varied opinions about this particular decision taken by the Speaker. So we want to get close to some of them and then pick their thoughts on this decision by the Speaker. You have here the Ketu South Member of Parliament, Jifa Abla Gomashi. Let's hear what she has to say.
But beyond that, I do not know of any such thing. It was not communicated to us. Even if it did, we were not told. So I don't know. I can't speak to that. Yes. But arise, Ghana youth. Let's all protect the constitution of this country. We are all Ghanaians equally. And if the law is being abused, don't let us be afraid. Let's speak up. Let's speak truth to power. Let's speak up and be counted for your generation and mine. Well, thank you.
Honorable, let's engage you briefly on Channel 1 TV. We're live. We want to find out from you this particular decision by the Speaker.
Yes.
How is it going to affect business of the House?
Why should it affect anything? If the party in power, if they have any business for government and they thought that it was important, they should have been sitting in the room. Mr. Speaker has just used what the law says and asked us to go Senate Day, which is in his power so to do. So whether it's going to affect any business or so, who is bringing the business? Who brings government business? Don't we have Chairman Sabosu as Minister for Government Business also? Whatever the title, the correct title arrangement is. So the minority leader, as we have it now, on the government side, Napanyo Makin didn't bring anything. He went into conclave and they walked out. I mean, really, who is going to do the business on behalf of who?
Couldn't there have been any other alternative to address this issue than to adjourn the House Senate?
Perhaps yes. Perhaps on hindsight, perhaps with the benefit of time, they should have had sober reflections on the actions that they had taken and decide that yes or no, in the interest of the Constitution and the democracy that we all have put our energies behind. Based on that, they will sit down for us to do business, but they didn't. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So you heard me speak to Ketu South MP Abla Jifa Gomashi on what she makes of the Speaker's decision to adjourn the House indefinitely due to the current happenings that we are experiencing in the country with regard to the declaration of some seats vacant by the Speaker Alban.
Close Parliament indefinitely, adjourn it indefinitely, which is the Synodine that we all hear here in Parliament.
Honorable, considering the fact that you have barely a month to actually end this particular session of Parliament, this interruption in business activities, won't it affect the House?
Well, that is for all of us as a House to make that decision and do the business that we were elected to do. We were elected to Parliament. No individual MP was elected here to come as a majority or minority. It is the Constitution that determines who becomes majority and minority based on the numbers at any point in time. We entered this House and the other side were the majority and we were the minority based on the numerical strength
of 137, 138. Along the line, that strength or that nomenclature has changed. Now it has become 136 for the NDC and 135 for the MPP. So automatically, without ambiguity, NDC becomes the majority. And that's the ruling that the Speaker, did on Thursday, sorry. Now the Supreme Court issue that has been, overturned or until final determination is made, I think it's a bit premature. But then this is a country of law, so we will see the law through. Today we came to Parliament as we were told to, and as I described earlier on, we had numbers to form a quorum but not to make a decision. The Speaker has now ruled that we should go indefinitely. So whatever backdoor negotiations or discussions that need to happen, if the minority MPP now wants to do business for Ghana, they should, come for us to do the business. The executive is still with Nana Akufo-Addo, so the executive brings the business, and then the majority will carry it through in Parliament.
But as has been adjourned, Senate, and how does government bring business to the House?
Well, so if government has business, the government can call Parliament. So if they have business, a certain number of people can call Parliament. Or if the Mr. Speaker thinks that, that it's settled for him to call Parliament, he will do so. And we will come as we have come today to do the business of government. But don't forget that the work of Parliament is not only here in the chamber. We have committee meetings that are still going on because it does go on when we are on recess. We also have our work in our constituencies, which is also going on, considering that this is an election year. So that's also ongoing. So for us, maybe a quarter of our work is been suspended indefinitely, but 2 quarters of our work still continues unabated.
Now, one of the key issues plaguing this particular country has to do with illegal mining. Many organized labor in particular was demanding that the LI 2462 be revoked. Government disclosed plans to bring an LI to ensure the revocation of this particular LI 2462. As the House has been adjourned indefinitely, has that not gone into the mud?
Well, this government has been in power for 8 years. If they have any LI to bring here, I think it's in the 11th hour. So I don't know whether we all want this illegal mining issue to be addressed. So if the Parliament comes back, Mr. Speaker calls us back, and it's a business on the table, we will do it.
Thank you so much for your time. Honorable, let's pick your thoughts also briefly. All right, so you heard from Honorable Kweku Ricketts Hagan, who is a member of Parliament for Cape Coast South, sharing his thoughts with us on the decision by the Speaker, Alban Bagbin, to indefinitely adjourn the House and so matters surrounding the declaration of 4 seats vacant is actually settled. It's been our live coverage from here in Parliament with me, Ni Ayikwe Okan. Back to you in the studio, Vivian.
Right, thank you very much, Ni Ayikwe Okan. We'll come back to you as and when we get more of the MPs to speak to. We're told the majority side are not yet, out for interviews to be done. So when they avail themselves, we would speak to them. But Sky, is this a fair ruling or, an indefinite? You could have just said adjourn next week and then look at some of the issues. Is it a fair one?
Okay, so like I said, under the Constitution and the Standing Orders, Standing Order 59, the Speaker has the authority, subject to the conditions being met, making the decision that he made. The question is whether in making that decision he has acted properly. I just want to go to Article 296 of the Constitution. The Speaker, in his communication to the House, said he, in his discretion, he was adjourning the House in a year. Article 296 deals with discretionary power and how it's used. It says, with your permission, let me quote. Where in this constitution or in any other law, discretionary power is vested in any person or authority, A, that discretionary power shall be deemed to imply a duty to be fair and candid. Fair and candid. B, the exercise of the discretionary power shall not be arbitrary, capricious, or biased, either by resentment, prejudice, or personal dislike, and shall be in accordance with due process of law. And C, where the person or authority is not a judge or other judicial officer, there shall be published by constitutional instrument or statutory instrument regulations that are not inconsistent with the provisions of this constitution or that other law to govern the exercise of the discretionary power. So you asked me a question. Does the Speaker have the power to do what he did? Yes, of course. The Supreme, the standing orders and the Constitution say so. He has the power to adjourn the House Senate indefinitely. But the test for determining whether the Speaker acted properly is under Article 296 of the Constitution. He says he exercised his discretion. Was he candid and fair?
Was he fair?
I won't answer that question.
You can't answer. You won't answer.
I can't answer.
Okay.
Was he fair and candid? Having regard, considering everything,
the circumstances.
Was he fair and candid? And did he do so as a matter of being arbitrary? Was he capricious? Was he biased? Either by resentment for some other party or some other parties, prejudice, or personal dislike? Now, if a citizen of the Republic of Ghana feels that the Speaker has not met the test set out in Article 296, I'm sure they will talk to their lawyers and they know what to do.
So we can have another legal issue based on this.
No,
if somebody feels.
I
mean, it's what it is.
I'm just expressing my respect, my humble view. Now, the other side is that if you look at the language of the Constitution, when the Speaker makes a decision like that to adjourn the House, of course, members of Parliament are entitled to recall the House if they so wish. Now, if you go to Article 112, Clause 3 of the Constitution, there is a provision there. So let me read it from 1.
Okay.
Because this is the provision that governs what we just saw in Parliament. A session of Parliament shall be held at such place within Ghana. So the Parliament sat inside that dome, right? The dome instead of the normal chamber that we know. It comes within the ambit of Article 21 of the Constitution. And shall commence at such time as the Speaker may determine, may by constitutional instrument determine what they appoint. So let's sit inside whatever they want to do that. A session of Parliament too shall be held at least once a year, so that the period between the last sitting of Parliament in one session and the first sitting of Parliament in the next session does not amount to 12 months. The relevant one. Notwithstanding any other provision of this article, 15% of members of Parliament may request a meeting of Parliament, and the Speaker shall within 7 days after the receipt of the request summon Parliament. So what this in effect means, in my humble opinion, is that, and the practice supports it, if members of Parliament, at least 15% of them, feel that there are important businesses of government to transact, or there are things troubling the people of Ghana that we want to deal with, and that Parliament should be sitting to deal with these matters, Those MPs constituting at least 15% of the number of members of parliament can sign a request, which request they will forward to the speaker, and under the constitution the speaker shall summon parliament within 7 days after receipt of the request.
Okay.
So regardless of what has just happened, your member of parliament, my member of parliament, if we feel strongly that galamsey is an issue that has got to be dealt with, we should send petitions to them in their houses or in their offices and say, look, we can't tolerate this parliament sitting in their houses when they should be doing taking decisions to deal with galamsey. So come on, go back to parliament.
Yeah.
They have got to listen to us, and we insist that they should sign a petition to that effect. So once they sign with the request and it goes to the speaker under the constitution has no discretion as to
whether to say no or no. He has to
recall. He has to.
And if he recalls with the numbers, what does he do with it?
If he recalls and you still have you don't have the numbers to take a decision. You don't have the numbers to take a decision. But see, the good thing about the provision that deals with constitutional instruments, right, is that it says 21 sitting days, right? It's sitting.
Yeah.
It is not decisions being taken by the House. So all the House needs to do is to sit. So like today, if we had a constitutional instrument before the House waiting to get to maturity, and we were counting from day one, we are approaching 21 days. Today will count as part of the sitting days of Parliament.
Okay.
You understand? So even if they had laid the thing today, it would have been left with 20 sitting days of Parliament. So if the people of Ghana believe that galamsey have to be fought, or there are some other issues that Parliament should be dealing with, they should call up their members of Parliament. They should move into their offices and tell them that, look, we don't think that you should have your petty issues the way they are going affect how this country is governed. Get back to Parliament. That's why we pay you every month. Go and sit your backside down and do what is in the interest of the Republic of Ghana. But strictly speaking, without reading other meanings into what has happened, the Speaker under the law has the power to adjourn sine die. The question is whether the test as laid down in Standing Order 59 is met, and whether Article 296 of the Constitution is properly respected.
Okay. Who will be the biggest loser in terms of this adjournment?
The people of Ghana.
Definitely.
The people of Ghana.
How about government business?
Well, as I understand it, the government had communicated to all of us that they intended to send notice of revocation. Some people argue that it should just be a matter of communication to the House. I don't share that view. The process that was used in making those laws should be the same processes that should be engaged. Communicated to the House that this matter is no longer what we want to be a part of our laws, so it should be nullified. So MPs will be brooding over it for 21 days, and then it kicks in and the law is dead. The reason is that when the premiers put together the Constitution, that's my humble view, they expected that when the matter is before the House, petitions may come. MPs will look at it and say, we don't think that this, this LI or this CI is in the interest of the people of Ghana, so let's nullify it. Of course, if they have 2/3 majority, they can actually vote to throw out the CI or the LI. What they do not have the authority to do is to amend it or change the provisions of it. You either throw it out or you allow it to pass, or you accept it as is. So you asked me, state of business of the country. Yeah. That is one of the things that we have to deal with. Ideally, we should be putting pressure on this government, which has acted thus far irresponsibly in terms of dealing with the galamsey menace, to go and do the business of ensuring that people are not destroying our water bodies, to ensure that Parliament is considering the LI that should deal or defeat this whole idea of mining in our forest reserves. But we have now spoiled everything. We are talking about a completely needless matter, something that should not get us to this point, and the water bodies are being poisoned. The government, through its soldiers and the police, are pretending to be fighting Galamsey when people are actually in the water bodies as we speak, destroying the water bodies, poisoning the environment, and affecting you and I. The question we should ask ourselves as citizens is whether the people claiming to represent us actually represent us. Are they representing us, or they are representing their own parochial political interests? That is the question that we should be asking. It is not the time to go and sit on social media. Yes, the speaker has the power, so he's exercised it. Oh, the MPs from the majority side, they have the power to stay away from proceedings, so they have done it. Is it in the interest of the people of Ghana that Parliament recall? Do you know how much it costs to recall Parliament? To come and sit in the what's the name of the place? The Dome. Do you know how much money was pumped into making that space habitable? And I use the word advisedly. For MPs to take on the role of using that space as their chamber for now, it's a lot of money.
Okay.
And there are pressing issues that Parliament as an institution should be dealing with.
Okay.
Yet, very petty issues have driven them to this point, and we're seeing very irresponsible decisions being made across both sides of the House. And this is completely unacceptable.
So let's go through some of the key LI that is likely to be affected based on the indefinite hold of sitting by the speaker. This should be on your screen. So, Sky, we're told that fees and charges, miscellaneous provisions, amendments, regulations 2024. We're told the likes of the corporate insolvency and restructuring regulations 2024. Also the prison service parole regulations 2024, and then the petroleum downstream Ghana content participation regulations 2024. So all these, if they are not recalled, all these are hanging, right?
Yeah. So charges and amendment regulations. Yes. So that is an LI. Corporate insolvency and regulation, also an LI. Prison service regulations, an LI. Petroleum downstream, blah blah blah, an LI. So all of these, only one additional day will be added to their progress towards maturity, because once the House has come to an adjournment, they will be deemed to be stalled in their growth process until the House begins or resumes sitting again, for them to receive additional days in their favor.
Right. Then also we are told a number of bills at stake in Parliament if this happens. So we can also pick that one quickly on our screens. For example, free SHS bill at stake, social protection bill, the environmental protection bill, the Ghana Boundary Commission bill, and the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana amendment bill.
All of these are very important pieces of legislation. I don't know if all of them are before Parliament, because the last time I checked, the free senior high school bill was not before Parliament.
Okay.
Parliament can only work on these pieces of legislation or draft legislations or proposed legislations if they are sitting. Of course, if some of these bills or all of them have been referred to specific committees to deal with, those committees, regardless of the adjournment sine die of the House, can still sit and be working on them. But the only way that they can properly be changed, cured, modified will be at the plenary, where MPs are sitting and considering every word of the proposed legislation, making changes or adding or subtracting as the case may be, and then voting on each and every one of the clauses therein. If Parliament is not sitting, that will not happen. So the point I'm making is that, yes, the Speaker has the authority to adjourn Parliament sine die. But the question is, was there consultation? If there was, what outcome is there for us, the people of Ghana, to know? We hear from the minority leader and we hear from the majority leader whether there was consultation. So that's one side, in line with the standing orders of Parliament, 59. Then Article 296. Was the Speaker fair and candid? Did he take it as a matter of capriciousness? All of those issues, if somebody is so minded, they can test that. But at the end of the day, the question we should ask ourselves is whether the majority and the minority side are acting in the very best interest of the people of Ghana. They claim that they represent the people of Ghana and that they have their best interests at heart.
Okay.
But what they are doing, you, the person who is listening to me right now or watching me on television, your problems have got to be solved by the person claiming or who you have voted for, forgive me, to represent your interests in Parliament. Is the person doing that?
All right.
Is it all about let's go to Parliament, choboy, or mobilize people to come and support us as MPP in Parliament or to support us as NDC in Parliament? Okay. It is about taking decisions that inure to the benefit. It does not matter how you feel.
All right. Sky, hold on. Let me go quickly to the phone lines and speak to the Honorable Mahama Ayariga to pick his thoughts on how things have panned out in Parliament with the Speaker adjourning the House indefinitely. The Honorable Mahama Ayariga, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
If you can hear me, your reaction to what the Speaker has done, saying that the House should be adjourned indefinitely, is that what you were expecting?
Oh, no, I didn't expect anything. I was just expecting the Speaker to come and then tell us exactly what the direction of affairs should be. If you recall, all the interviews are granted since Friday. I have insisted that for us, we listen to the Speaker and the directions given by the Speaker. And his comment has given an indication that the House should adjourn sine die. So the House was adjourned, and I believe that during the period of adjournment, whatever needs to happen will happen. But that is the course of direction that the direction that the Speaker has decided to choose, and so we need to follow that.
Right. Behind the scenes, what would you guys, in terms of the minority, be doing to ensure we find a proper solution to all that is developing right before us?
Did you say minority?
Yes, I did.
Since you haven't been listening to our statements, we are the majority. The Speaker didn't set aside his directives. And you recall we said that it is only when the Speaker changes his communication that we, on the NDC side, will review anything. So far as we are concerned, the Speaker's communication in terms of the numbers in the House still stands. He hasn't varied anything. And so I can assure you that we consider ourselves as the majority and will act as such. So there's no issue at all. We don't have a problem.
Right. What is your plan moving forward?
So we'll go back to our constituencies and campaign. We were campaigning when we were recalled by the Speaker for a sitting of Parliament. So since we have adjourned indefinitely, we'll go back to our constituencies and then we'll run our election campaign. That's all.
So don't you think that development will affect all of us, not just government business, but your constituents as well?
Which development? Which development?
As in
the excessive taxes, the mismanagement of the economy, the plundering of the resources of the country, cutting off all sorts of natural resources and then distributing them indiscriminately. What business is going to suffer? Tell me what business, what proper business is going to suffer. Tell me what proper business this government could have conducted within this period to change the circumstances of the suffering Ghanaians that you think that is so urgent and so important that we need to sit for the next couple of days to facilitate them to execute. Absolutely.
Hello? Hello? Honorable Ayariga, can you hear me? It appears we've lost him. We'll try and raise the phone lines and get him back there. So the minority still insisting that the majority.
So you see, let's even assume without admitting that the NPP side was irresponsible in walking away from the House. Of course, they tell us that they don't want to have any confrontation, so that's why they decided to leave. But let's grant them that. And let's assume that the Speaker's orders, in spite of the decision of the Supreme Court, remains valid. What it means is that 136 MPs, right, from the majority side, majority, 136. So as we speak, if we assume without admitting that the Speaker, the decision has made,
definitely.
What it means is that the NDC side, properly so called, ideally, if it cared about the people of Ghana, should have mobilized all 136 people. They should have gone to Parliament today, and in the light of the constitutional provisions I've read to you earlier, would have been doing business. But did they?
Okay, Richard, hold on. I'll do that and check the numbers.
Why?
The Honorable Mahama Yariga, you were saying that you don't think the current issues in terms of being available for the business of Parliament was, necessary based on the developments we are seeing in the country.
Well, I mean, the point I'm making is that I don't see any serious business that this government has anyway. And in any case, we have given clear indications that some of the businesses that they had, we were opposed to them. So whether Parliament was going to be instead or not, we're going to vote against those matters. And so, so far as we are concerned, I don't think that Ghanaians are going to lose anything by our decision, by the decision of the Speaker to adjourn the House immediately, because to tell you the truth, we were already opposed to a lot of the things that government was seeking to do at this dying minute of the life of the Parliament. So we don't have any issue at all. And if they had any business, but the ones who have the business, they walked out. Why they walked out when they had business?
We'll speak to them as well.
They had business. They had lined up business, and a lot of the businesses didn't need them to have majority to execute. They didn't need. They were laying all these CIs and instruments you are talking about. Laying is simply required that they stand up and then they lay. They bow and then the Speaker will lay. And then these CIs realized would have run 21 sitting days and come into effect. So they didn't need to be declared as majority caucus before they will carry out government business. So if the ones who are supposed to carry out government business in the House are not interested in government business, now the majority NDC, who are already opposed to many of the things that they want to do, should worry about the business that government is interested in transacting in the House.
Okay. Your side, which you now claim is the majority, how many of your members were in Parliament today? All of them?
I didn't come, to tell you the truth. If there was a vote and then there was a question as to the numbers, then, we would have come. I was in front. I really didn't look behind to see how many people were there. But the Speaker, in his estimation, we didn't have the full complement of the numbers. If every single one of our members were in the House, we would have had at least half of the current number of members of Parliament, which counted excludes
for which will allow you to be able to take over and do the business of the day. Isn't that so?
Our business. We have business.
So you want to be majority, but you don't want to go the full haul of doing the business of the day.
We don't have business doing.
So why do you want to be seen as majority? Majority doing what?
Because
just the numbers?
Because the last that we had a majority.
How are you the majority? We clearly saw that most of your colleagues were not in, for which it couldn't be determined that you have the majority of the House to carry out and take decisions.
You don't understand what it means to say somebody is a side is the majority. The majority is the number of elected members of parliament belonging to a party. That is the majority. It doesn't matter whether they were physically in the House or not. So we don't need to have all of them sitting in the chamber for us to be the majority.
But you say that you want to scrap the e-levy. I do understand it clearly. You say you want to scrap the likes of the e-levy because you have assumed the position of the majority. Can I make my stake? Can I ask a question? I'll allow you to answer. If that is the case, how are you going to do that with those numbers?
It is not done the same day. Even if we all of us were in the chamber today, we wouldn't be able to today just scrap e-levy. We use our numbers, and our standing orders make provision for us first to draft the bill. Then we have to do stakeholder consultation.
So as and when you choose, you bring in the numbers and pass
exactly.
the
So
bill.
as and when we get to the point where we want to now lay the bill, when they are ready and they have been approved by the speaker, I'm sure by that time we will make sure that we have the numbers. But even then, we don't need all the numbers in the chamber to lay it. We need to lay it. It is the day that we're going to take decision on the bill. That will be the day when we will need every single one of us in the chamber. But the day we are going to lay it, it doesn't really matter whether all of us are in the chamber or not. That's how it works in Parliament. So don't worry about our numbers today. The most important thing today is for us to accept our position that we are the majority and we are sitting on the right side of the House. And if you notice, the Right Honourable Speaker did not object to us sitting on the right side of the House. If he had concluded that we were not the majority, he would have directed us to move to the side of the House where the minority is supposed to sit. But he kept quiet because he knew that we were the majority. And
if that is the case, he could have decided then to have adjourned the sitting to tomorrow and not indefinitely, acknowledging your position that you are.
The people who have business and want Parliament to sit so that they will conduct their business were not there. And the Speaker is not. He doesn't have any business. The Speaker only presides if you brought business. So if you are not interested, Thursday you walked out. Today, Tuesday, you are not there. And MPs have to go and campaign. Election is barely 2 months away, and he's forced MPs to abandon their campaigns and come back. And you, the ones who have business and need to conduct the business, you decide to walk out. What is he supposed to do? To keep calling us to come every day, whether you will come or not, whether you are interested in your own business or not? I mean, come on. The Speaker understands this. So the MPs need to go back to their constituencies and campaign. So he's giving them an indefinite suspension of the House so that the day that those who have business and are interested in the business come back and say that they are interested in their business, he will see what to do.
All right, thank you very much. The Honorable Mahama Yariga, the MP for Boko Central, on the line there, trying to defend their low numbers and school me on parliamentary affairs. Richard.
I've listened to my good friend, the Honorable Mahama Yariga, closely. And, the Honorable Mahama Yariga is one of the brilliant minds within the NDC I respect so much. I remember our days on the fields when I was covering the CJA. He was one of the leading lights of the Committee for Joint Action, demonstrations, and the young people. At the time, he wasn't a member of Parliament, or he was one of them. And, but with the greatest respect to him, I think that he's not being, I want to be, look, let me put it this way. Let's assume you have the majority side of Parliament today. And you have 136 members of Parliament. And let's assume that nobody is respecting the court orders. And so, or even if, let's say that you are respecting, and the MPP side is not in the House. The calculation you and I did tells us that ideally, if they mobilize all 136 members of Parliament to the chamber, they can take decisions. You understand? They told us they want to remove e-levy, something we have been crying about, that e-levy is killing us.
Yeah.
I believe that when the thing happened, maybe they had drafted something and put down,
ready to go into action.
So we would have seen all 130
he's saying that they will do that for a while, and then the day they want to, pass it, amend it, they'll get everybody all they want to.
Or they would have taken decisions, authorizing certain things, But so is this just majority in name, or look? I think that we should take the people of Ghana seriously. If they had all 136 members of parliament in the house today, I don't think the speaker would have said that, given the state of the numbers, he was adjourning indefinitely. And another thing to say, the speaker of parliament could have adjourned the house to tomorrow. And could have said that, look, having regard to the state of the numbers, we are adjourning to tomorrow. In which case, the NDC side would have mobilized its people to go back, because the NPP people say they will stay away from the proceeding. You understand? So it could have been tomorrow. Why did the speaker adjourn indefinitely?
Yeah.
He says in consultation with leadership. The question is, have we heard from leadership? So I'll hold my horses and wait until we hear from the majority leader and the minority leader as to what discussions went on, why the decision was taken that there should be an adjournment in view of the numbers and the state of affairs and all of that. When the speaker could have said, okay, today we don't have the numbers in the house. In the circumstances, I am minded to adjourn to tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the forenoon. That did not happen. It is indefinite suspension of the house. Question is, whether all the tests laid down in the Constitution and all the tests in the standing orders have been complied with. But as a matter of plain reading of the law, the speaker has had the authority to actually adjourn the house indefinitely. The question is, did he meet the requirements of the various laws?
Okay, so we got all those answers from leadership of the two sides. We'll be exploring other matters around this in our subsequent programming at 5:30 on City 97.3 FM. We'll take the discussion further there on Eyewitness News, as well as on TV, Channel 1 TV, on the Channel 1 Newsroom at 8 p.m. tonight to get more details. We have to wrap up. Thank you very much to our reporters who were on the field, Niayiko Okain as well as Charles Osei-Kumi. We also have our camera crew led by Paul and Roger. And then to our producers, Richard Benson, Fred Jabano, and Akosia Ochre. Very big thank you to MCR and PCR, as well as the floor, for also coming through for us. My name is Vivian Lokko with Richard Sky, bringing you analysis for our special coverage of the parliamentary sitting. Do stay with us here on City 97.3 FM and Channel 1 TV. Goodbye.